All right, good morning everyone. So today we're in Canberra, Australia, the capital. And so, I was thinking, what is YouTube lacking right now? What is the internet lacking right now? And I thought, they're lacking a good video on Australian Parliament. So today we're going to go into Parliament. I'll talk a little bit about the place. Hopefully we can learn something and have a good time while doing it. All right, let's go. So when you come to Australia, you're going to see that they have 3 flags that fly. All right, so the first flag you're going to see is Australia's national flag. So the national flag has the familiar Union Jack in the upper left-hand corner, and it has 6 white stars representing the 6 states of Australia. Next, the next flag you're going to see flying next to it is the Torres Strait Islander flag. The Torres Strait Islander flag represents the Torres Strait Islander Aboriginal people, and the colors of that flag, so you're going to see green, blue, and white. The green represents the land, the blue represents the sea, and the horseshoe dari represents the Torres Strait Islander people. The star has 2 meanings. It represents navigation, and the 5 points represents the 5 major islands of the Torres Strait. Also, I don't know if you can see that there are 2 black lines in between the green and the blue, and those black lines also represent the Torres Strait Islander people. The Torres Strait, if any of you guys are wondering, it's actually located North Australia, like off the, I don't know if you want to call it the Horn, but it's like in that little space between Northern Australia and Papua New Guinea. And then you have the Aboriginal flag, which has 3 colors. So you're going to see black, red, and yellow. The black represents the Aboriginal people. The yellow represents the sun, the yellow circle. And the red represents the color of the outback. All right, so do you guys see that metal structure at the top? So those are meant to represent boomerangs, and boomerangs is kind of like a national symbol of Australia. You see the flag that's flying on top of the boomerangs. That is actually, I was told that it's the size of 2 double-decker buses. I don't believe that. It doesn't look that big, but that's what I was told. Okay, so right now we're at the entrance, and you see it has Australia's coat of arms right out there. To the left there's the kangaroo, and to the right there's the emu bird, representing the Great Emu War of 1856, which the Australians lost. So they thought that they should pay homage to it by sticking it on their coat of arms. I'm just kidding. There was no emu war in 1856. Well, so we got about 10 minutes before Parliament House opens, and check out the line waiting to enter Parliament House. Massive. So in the late 70s, under the Malcolm Fraser government, they decided that there needs to be a new Parliament House. So all these architectural companies all over the world put in submissions about what they thought would be a good fit for a Parliament House in Canberra, and it was ultimately awarded to this Italian architect based in America. I think his name was Romualdo Giorgola. And when he designed Parliament House, this Parliament House is actually on a hill, and they actually dug inside the hill to build the Parliament House because they didn't want the Parliament House to be lording over the people. They didn't want it to look like the government was lording over the Australians like a totalitarian dictatorship. And it took, I think this Parliament House was worth about $1.1 billion. It took $1.1 billion to make. That's about a little over $4 billion in today's money. So I'm not sure if you can see that right there. Can you guys see the little squares, the little boxes between the 5 and the 4 and the 8 and the 7? Well, those actually have pretty big significance. So when there's a vote, one of those squares lights up either green or red. Red is the symbol for the House of Senate, symbol for the Senate, and the green is the symbol for the House of Representatives. And when it lights up, it basically tells the members of Parliament that they have 4 minutes to get to their respective chambers for a vote. And why 4 minutes, you ask? It's basically goes back to when they were at the old Parliament House. Members would usually have they timed the oldest member of the Parliament who worked in the furthest office from his respective chamber, and they timed that it took him about 4 minutes to get to his chamber for a vote. So they kind of just said, okay, we're gonna give them 4 minutes to get to their respective chambers, and if they don't arrive there within 4 minutes, we're gonna lock the doors and they won't be able to get in for the vote. Okay, so this right behind me is called the Great Hall, and it serves as a place where Australian Parliament members can have functions. Private gatherings are also held here. For example, the University of Canberra holds graduation ceremonies here. Look at how big it is. Nice ceiling. So why Canberra? So if you look on a map, you'll notice that Canberra is in between Melbourne and Sydney. And in 1901, the House of Reps actually met in Melbourne from 1901 until 1927. But Sydney and Melbourne have a fierce rivalry, and neither city was willing to accept that the capital would be placed in either city. So 1909, they had an agreement that the new capital would be no more than 100 miles from Sydney, but in New South Wales. So if you look on a map, it's like southern part of New South Wales. And they wanted to start construction for the new Parliament, for the Parliament House. But World War I happened, and they weren't able to finish it until May 9th, 1927. And the date May 9th is actually pretty significant too, because Old Parliament, the opening ceremony in Melbourne was opened May 9th, 1901. When they opened up Old Parliament in Canberra in 1927, that was May 9th, 1927. And then when they did the grand opening ceremony here for Parliament House, the opening ceremony was May 9th, 1988. They initially wanted it to be January 26, 1988. commemorating the 200th anniversary from when Europeans first landed in Australia. But you know, like all government projects, budget went over, and you know, it took longer than expected, so they settled on May 9th, 1988. Okay, so when you're a prime minister, each prime minister gets a painting. So, see Tony Abbott right there. Here's Julia Gillard. She was Australia's first prime minister. Kevin Rudd. I heard that he was pretty fluent in Mandarin, but I actually haven't heard him speak. And then various people that I've never heard of. So, when Australia elects its prime minister, it's not done the same way the United States does, elects their president. So the majority party in Australia usually elects the prime minister. So right now the Labour Party is in charge, so they elect the prime minister. And unlike the United States, their prime ministers do not have term limits. So I think the longest serving prime minister in Australia was, I think he served 18 years altogether, Robert Menzies, of the Liberal Party. And the shortest serving prime minister, the shortest term, was about 7 days. I think that was Francis Ford in the 40s. I was looking at some of the Australian prime ministers, and they can serve terms. They can serve consecutive terms, non-consecutively. So some prime ministers can serve, you know, from 2008 to 2010, and then be re-elected again 2013 or 2016 or something like that. Okay, so right now we're in the Senate, and the Australia Senate is kind of modeled after the US Senate, in that in the US each state has 2 senators. In Australia, since they have 6 states, each state has 12 senators, and not including Australia's Capital Territory and the Northern Territory, they get 2 senators each. And so, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this is kind of colored red in homage to British's House of Commons, the House of Lords. And can you see right there? It kind of, the red is kind of like a dullish red, because it's kind of paying respects to the Australian outback. Alright, so here's the Australia's House of Representatives, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of a green color, and it kind of is the green scheme of Britain's House of Commons, but it's kind of like a muted green a little bit, to kind of resemble Australia's eucalyptus tree. So when you come into Australia, you're going to see a lot of eucalyptus trees. Also they have a thing called question time, where actually spectators can come in and they can see both parties duke it out. And I think last time when I went to question time, the first time I went to Parliament House, the speaker actually threw out one member because he thought he was being too rowdy in the chamber. You can actually see that there's 2 sides. You know, usually the Labour Party and the opposition party, we usually duke it out during question time. And in the center right there, that's where the speaker sits. And the speaker is elected by the majority party. So right now the speaker is from the Labour Party. Also, Australia has presently 151 House of Representatives. And I think that this chamber can seat up to 172 max. The House of Representatives is based on population within each state, I believe. Not 100%, but I think that's what I read, and that's what I was told. Okay, so you guys see that fountain? You guys see that fountain? So that is significant because when they were building this place, they wanted to make it so that the opposition party, the politicians, when they were talking or conversing, they didn't want the opposing party to hear what they were saying. So they made this fountain to kind of drown out their voices and any kind of conversations or discussions they would have. And also down here, this is where Parliament meets. All their offices are down here. They got about, I think this house has like 4,000, over 4,000 rooms. But this place is not open to the public. But yeah, all the members of Parliament, their offices are down here. Alright, so right now we're going up to the rooftop of Parliament. You can get a good view of the city. Okay, so right now we're on top of Parliament House and you can get a good view of the city, you see? So you see that white building right there? That's actually old Parliament House. They didn't want to get rid of it when they built the new one. And right in back, I don't know if you guys can see that kind of tan strip. That's Anzac Parade. And every year on Anzac Day, April 25th, I believe, they hold a parade. They hold a parade honoring the veterans. And I think Anzac stands for Australia New Zealand Army Corps. So they honor the veterans from Australia and New Zealand. And right behind Anzac Parade, that little dome, is the War Memorial. And then right behind that is Mount Ainslie. When I was reading up on Canberra, I read that it was Canberra actually is an Aboriginal word for meeting place, and it's also kind of ironic that the city is situated between two mountains, Mount Ainslie and Black Mountain. So what's really interesting is that when they were designing Parliament House in the late 70s, they were very security minded and they wanted to provide the most safety for their government officials, because during the 70s, during that time, Australia went through some crises where they had I think there was a bombing. I forget what it was, but they had some security incidents, and they wanted to make it so that the members of the Parliament House were spread out. But that's a double-edged sword, because in old Parliament House, it was pretty small and it was pretty compact, and the opposing members would often cross paths, like when they got coffee, or when they ate, or when they were going to eat lunch or whatever, and they would often exchange pleasantries. Whereas the new Parliament House, since it's more spread out, the only time opposing parties see each other is during question time or their debate time. And so they're already arriving to the chamber in a pretty acrimonious mood. See the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Here is the Senate. You notice how in their pictures the background is red. That symbolizes the color of the Senate. And here's the House of Representatives. Same thing. You guys notice how it has that green eucalyptus color in each member's background, the background picture. There's the Speaker. One thing that I found interesting about Australia's Parliament House is that it's one of the most open Parliament houses to the public in the world. And there are a lot of, not only are there government functions carried out here, but also a lot of private functions that the citizens can do. Here's some Aboriginal art. Alright, that about does it for our Parliament House tour. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Yeah, I thought it was I think it's a good Parliament House. I think it's nice that it's open to the public and you can see everything and you can see the politicians debate during question time. We didn't see that today, but interesting nonetheless. But yeah, I'm gonna end the video and yeah, see you next time.